This is a long-range weekly chart of the Canadian dollar. As one of the few fiat currencies in the world to actually hold is probably this. If you want to hold cash, Canadians are fairly lucky in this way because one thing I know, even though short term the commodities might pull back due to a slowdown in China, long term commodities are going way up. And there's a particular curveball, or whatever you want to call that, that's coming up that will bring commodities up a hell of a lot. Not just quantitative easing or anything like that, but something else. And I know Lindsey Williams says some things, but it's the obvious. The obvious is that the U.S. dollar is going to lose its world reserve currency status very shortly, probably maybe in 2012. Now, one thing, I think the Canadians are pretty lucky in this respect because as commodities go up, their currency is going to do better. And you can see what happened back here in the financial crisis when the commodities all took a nosedive. The Canadian dollar against the U.S. dollar lost a lot of value, but then it was increasing as commodities went up, such as oil and silver, gold, whatever. Gold could be a commodity, I guess, somewhat, but it's more money. But and then as the commodities took another correction in 2011, later on, the Canadian dollar revalued, it was less valuable, and now the commodities are going back up again. One thing I think it's going to really be a major difference as far as gold and silver, copper, zinc, lead, you name it, going up, especially gold and silver. Gold initially, then silver second, and silver will surpass gold, is the revaluation of the Chinese Yuan. This is something, it's kind of being discussed, but it's not out there in the limelight on the news. But this is really, its QE is going to be something. It's also going to be like how much productivity is going on, how much the oil prices are, and all this type of stuff. But if you want to make a pretty fast sudden death move in a dollar, change the value to yuan. And this is a chart that's a monthly chart, so it goes back all the way to 2005. But you can see the trend here. And now during this time when we had QE going on, the yuan was steady. But then after QE basically ended, they're revaluing it. And I think this is I suspect that the yuan is going to be revalued radically in coordination with people over here in the United States and the Federal Reserve. And it's going to screw over the middle class. So your only protection is going to be gold and silver and copper too. I mean, I think a lot of other things too will be somewhat any kind of protection. In other words, real assets versus currency. And I did point out the Canadian dollar is probably going to be one of the best fiat currencies to hold. As far as the Canadians got it pretty good because their currency is very much linked to commodities. You can see their currency devalued a lot when commodities took a hit. Now maybe short-term commodities might go down maybe over the next couple of weeks because of the slowdown in China. But long-term, especially when they revalue the yuan this year, I bet you they do this. And this is where the dollar is going to lose its world reserve currency. Now this chart, it's right off of Wikipedia. And it's kind of hard to see. This last line here, it's like a blue line. You can barely see it, but it's going up, and I'm assuming that's the yuan. It just says other. It just says other. Obviously, the dollar is the largest percentage of the world reserve currency going on. It's the biggest one, followed by the euro, followed by the Japanese yen, followed by the pound sterling. But the yuan is going to come on very strong, and it's going to be in coordination with the Federal Reserve. This is what I think. I've been reading various articles. I don't want to get into every little detail of what I read, but that does make a lot of sense. And that's probably another reason you're going to see gold and silver really fly upward a hell of a lot this year. And this is more detail as to what the breakdown of the global currency reserves are. And you can see this last line here, other. Now, initially, it had a larger percentage, and that was because it was the individual European countries, and it jumped up into here into the euro, 17.9%. But, you can see what's going on here from 1.6%, 1.4, 1.2% to almost 5% in in 2011, on the third quarter of 2011. That has to be the one. That's the only thing I can think of that would be in that. It would be an other, and this trend is going to continue. Now, considering what kind of problems are going on with the euro, I guess they'll be taking it from the euro too. So, this, I think, if you're looking at this chart, I know it's a monthly chart. It's a very long-range chart, but it's not so much as a downward trend, but I think there's going to be a sudden movement, very sudden movement in the yuan, and that's where you're going to see rapid price increases here in the United States. And your only protection, really, is going to be the commodities, like gold and silver, plus the commodities. It's an interesting little tidbit that China consumes 41% of the world's copper, 41% of the nickel, 43% of steel, 45% of tin, 46% of lead, and nearly 47% of zinc. So when there's a slowdown in China, it takes a real bite out of the commodities, big time, and that includes silver. That will include silver, even though it's a precious metal. But if they revalue that currency fast, and I think they are, I don't know when it's going to be, but I'll bet you it's this year. I'll bet it's this year. They've been talking about this for a while. You'll see the price of all these commodities go way the hell up. So in a way, copper, the cheapest way I know the way to buy copper is to buy nickels, but I think silver and gold are going to do a hell of a lot better than these commodities, and that is probably what's going to happen, I think, with the sudden death of the dollar. Not like totally into oblivion, but where it's devalued and it loses its world reserve currency fast. It's going to be about revaluing the Chinese yuan. This trend line is going to start accelerating, and I think it's all planned. So we could look at various things, but once they do this thing is going to change very quickly, and once that happens, you're going to see this other is going to say Chinese yuan, and this line is going to go way up here, and this other line, US dollar, is going to come down quite a bit. And I think that's all planned. So that is another reason to hold gold and silver. That's something that's not being discussed too much. It is, but it's not. It's not being discussed specifically. I think this is in coordination with people in the Federal Reserve, that they're going to revalue this Chinese yuan. And maybe they'll make a whole bunch of political statements and make a big bunch of garbage about it, but I think it's planned. And that is one reason to hold gold and silver. Even though in the short term, for the next 2 or 3 weeks, it may go down a little bit along with other commodities, but this year they're going to explode. That's a definite.